Welcome back. Some Nigerians in different northern states have taken up the issue of security in the region in prayers. Political and religious leaders today gathered at different places of worship to offer prayers for Nigeria with a focus on the country's security challenges. Former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, led the session in Bauchi State, where the northeast was the focus of the prayers.
The church community welcomes the former military head of state, General Yakubu Gowon. He is accompanied by heavily armed men. Insecurity is the concern, and the former military leader is the convener. He leads the congregation in prayers.
We bring confession for sins of needless bloodshed and killings, and renewed attacks by the dreadful Boko Haram insurgents, banditry, increased spate of kidnappings in various parts of the country, and all kinds of evil in our nation.
The governor of Bauchi State and top members of his cabinet also joined the gathering.
We need prayers to overcome the agents of darkness and underdevelopment. We need prayers to go out of the woods which we have been put by bad leadership. In the past, religion was used to divide us in Bauchi. The narrative is now changing. And I am proud to say that my government is the most accommodating and most representative of all faiths.
In the north central, Muslims in Niger State converged on the Mina Central Mosque to observe prayers for the nation. Governor Abubakar Bello is among top government officials at the prayer ground. He says more than 10,000 people have been displaced so far.
Recently, very unusual, in the last few weeks, we have been confronted with a lot of security challenge from unknown armed bandits from wherever they are.
Christians also observed prayers in the various local churches before gathering at the State Secretariat of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Mina to finish what they've started. For several years, the Northeast have been the epicenter of insurgency, creating a humanitarian crisis across the northern region. These leaders are hoping the prayers, coupled with the efforts of military, will bring to an end the insurgency and restore a lasting peace in the region.
Open your mouth and pray that prayer.
Staying in the north, the Katsina state government today ordered the closure of a traditional healing center in Dutsi local government area of the state. Governor Aminu Masari's directive follows an unscheduled visit to the center, which existence the operator claims local authorities are not aware of. He lamented the unhealthy environment where the traditional healer carries out his sessions and further rejected the entire operation. Governor Masari is worried that people visiting the home could end up being inflicted with various ailments. Several women and children are set to be undergoing healing in the facility, which has since been shut down. Now, the news: some residents of Itobe community in Kogi State are appealing to the state government to intervene in the alleged plan by the traditional ruler of Igala to install a woman as the district head of Itobe. Members of the community staged a protest claiming that the brewing crisis of a chieftaincy stool is unacceptable to the entire community, describing as abominable a woman occupying the traditional stool of the land. But the traditional ruler says he's not done anything wrong. Youth of Itobe on the streets to express their displeasure, and what they say is the imposition of a woman on them as the traditional head of their locality. They're asking for government intervention before the situation gets out of hand.
Tagala cannot tell us that Itobe of over 70,000 population, that we cannot see a person, a man of impeccable character, a man of integrity to be installed at Itobe. That a woman an aged woman to be installed. You know, it's embarrassing.
Chief issue is not clannish. It's not a personal idea. It is of communal idea. It is for me and you to come together and say, this person must be our chief. It is not an issue that a single person will say, let this man be your ruler. No, it's not done anywhere.
The monarch in the region insists that a woman has once ruled and sees nothing wrong with a woman occupying the traditional stool.
The court has never imposed any person to become chieftaincy on the people. It is according to the law that the people operate before we came to meet it. This woman is qualified by her family line and by her position as a middle woman. And this is not the first, this is the third.
The state government, however, recently issued a warning that no traditional chief should appoint or crown anyone as district head without its approval.
You will not install anybody as a chief, as a third class or second class, or as a district head, either temporarily or permanently, without the authority of the ministry on behalf of the government.
For now, the residents of Itobe are waiting to see how events will unfold, with the government directive on one hand and the people's agitation on the other. Tough questions about Nigeria's growth rate are back in focus. According to the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, Nigeria's population will be more of a burden than an asset unless there is an appropriate and commensurate growth in the economy. This week, after concluding Article 4 consultation to Nigeria, senior staff of the International Monetary Fund released their report. The IMF report lowers Nigeria's annual economic growth rate from 2.5% to 2%. Channels TV's data analyst Babajide Ogosowo is here tonight to discuss what the IMF considered in its lower economic growth rate forecast for Nigeria and how we can achieve a rapid growth. Welcome.
Good evening. You know, tonight I have some good news and I have some bad news.
No wonder you're so sober. Let's hear the bad news first.
Okay, so let's go with the bad news first. The bad news talks about why Nigeria's growth forecast has been lowered by the IMF. And even though the IMF gave a lot of reasons, I would like to talk about the top 3 reasons. The first reason, rising inflation. Based on the Nigeria National Bureau of Statistics' latest report on inflation, inflation currently is 12%. The IMF also talks about the second reason, which is monetary and physical concerns. And by that, what they are talking about is over as much as 60% of Nigeria's revenue still goes in servicing debt. And we also look at the external reserves, currently $36 billion. As at May 2018, external reserves were $47 billion. And here's the third and final, most important reason why the IMF has lowered our growth forecast: China. Now, what do I mean by China? The coronavirus. Here's why it is important. China is the world's second largest consumer of crude oil. And because of coronavirus, the forecast is the demand of crude oil from China will be lower, which will affect the price of crude oil. And all countries that really depend on crude oil will be affected. So the right question for tonight is, how much does Nigeria still depend on crude oil? And if we take a quick look at that, the evidence will show us how much of our exports in the last 4 years has still been crude oil.
Yeah.
And from that, we will see that over 80% of our exports in 2016 was crude oil. If we look at what happened in 2017, we'll also see that over 80% of our exports, total exports in the country, crude oil. And even as of last year, as much as 80% of our exports is still dependent on crude oil. So that is one of the major reasons. In other words, oil is to Nigeria as lies is to the devil.
Yeah, put that side by side, the projection that by 2050 we'll have more than 5 100 million people living in Nigeria. What sort of economic growth rates will be ideal, to impact the population and the standard of living?
It's all about the standard of living. Currently, population growth rate is 3%. We're currently growing at 2.2%. The IMF is saying for this year we will not likely grow above 2%. So the minimum target growth rate for the government, for us to be able to at least make sure standard of living does not drop, should be 3.2%. But should the Nigerian government focus on that minimum rate? The answer is no. Let's focus on the sort of rate that we achieved in 2002, 14.6%. In other words, 2002, the way most Nigerians were feeling in 2002 is the way supporters of Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, were feeling earlier today. So that is the sort of feeling the government should get. That 14.6% growth rate that we had in 2002 should be the target, but the minimum should be 3.2% growth rate because that is the population growth rate.
So do we have any pointers, to show us and the rest of Africa how we can grow faster?
I talked about the good news, and here's the good news. Perhaps we should ask ourselves, what is the fertilizer for growth for Nigeria and the rest of Africa? And based on research and the trends we have, if we take a look at the sort of trade that has been happening between Nigeria and the rest of Africa, in 2016, Nigeria's total exports to Africa, to other countries in Africa relative to the world was 9%. 2017, 9%. 2018, 9%. Last year, it is estimated that trade to Africa, 15%. So in reality, the fertilizer for growth for Nigeria is improving our trade relationships with the rest of other African countries. In other words, let's keep exporting more, let's keep looking at opportunities, and let's look at the demand for goods and services within Africa and focus less on what is going on outside Africa. That is the fertilizer for growth, trade with Africa.
In other words, the future.
And sometimes next week, I'll share a story with you by Cheryl Sherwood, and I think you'll like it.
Okay, you can tell me after then. Thanks again, Babajide.
The pleasure is all mine.
Oscar-winning actress Lupita Nyong'o was hosted by novelist Chimamanda Adichie in Lagos. Nyong'o, who is famous for her roles in critically acclaimed movies such as 12 Years a Slave and Black Panther, is welcomed by top Nigerian celebrities within the movie and music sphere as she moves to familiarize herself with the country. She is co-producing and starring in the miniseries adaptation of Chimamanda's book, Americana.
Whenever a constellation of stars form like this in a cheery mood, then it must be a celebration. And the celebration today is to receive and welcome the Oscars. Award-winning Hollywood actress Lupita Nyong'o, she arrives in a simple purple dress with a single arm puff, while the chief host, celebrated Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie, dons a green replica. The Kenyan-born star of Black Panther and 12 Years a Slave is co-producing a 10-part miniseries screen adaptation of Adichie's critically acclaimed novel, Americana, a project she's also set to star in.
Their names are Waje.
At a follow-up dinner, Adichie welcomes her host as she formally introduces her to the veterans and raves of the Nigerian creative industry. On her part, Nyong'o explains why she's particularly drawn to Adichie's Americana.
When Americana came out, I read it immediately, and I'm not as an avid a reader as I would like to be, but I make room for her writing. And I read it, and I wept many times because I felt like she had captured my experience being an immigrant in America. And she'd done so with such specificity.
The award-winning work of fiction chronicles the story of a Nigerian immigrant to the United States of America, a situation that has now become a fad in the country. Nyong'o is billed to play the lead character, Ifemelu, in the series, and so has been brushing up on the Igbo language and Pidgin English.
I've been here learning Igbo, which might as well be Mandarin, really. I mean, and Pidgin as well, because if I sabi Pidgin, if I sabi Pidgin, one fit gon' sell me.
Her presence is exciting Nigerian creatives, and they hope to make the best of the international attention the project is likely to attract.
It's a big opportunity for both Lupita, Chimamanda. This is not her first. As you know, half of a Yellow Sun was done into a movie.
Nyong'o will star alongside British-American actor Zachary Momo and American actress with Nigerian roots Uzo Aduba.
Still ahead on the news at 10, new WBC heavyweight champion Tyson Fury says he will happily welcome a Deontay Wilder rematch or Anthony Joshua unification bout following his triumph. We'll have more in sports news. Stay with us.